Rachel Howzell Hall is an acclaimed and award-winning author who also works full-time creating fundraising literature for Cedars-Sinai Medical Center. Rachel, welcome to Thriller Talk.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm so excited to be here.
And we're thrilled to have you. Now, Rachel, I understand that you're very busy doing promotional stuff and now she's gone. And, and now that is
There it
great.
is.
Love when you have props. And so it's about one woman trying to find another, but my understanding is that that other woman does not want to be found. What research did you do into missing people or tracking down people? Can you share anything interesting?
Yes, of course, the news is filled with articles of missing women, and that's unfortunate. But for, crime writers like ourselves, it feeds the brain and the imagination. And so, one, I only had to just look around what's happening now. And two, I read this book called Playing Dead by Elizabeth Greenwood. And she talked about her journey on how to become dead, from buying death certificates and claiming unclaimed bodies to all that it takes to disappear, which is hard to do, especially with our little phones having GPS systems. So I wanted to do something like that. And I also wanted to tie in the reasons, of course, why some women have to disappear. And so I read a lot about organizations that help protect women who are needing it from, domestic abuse or some type of violence. So it's been everywhere, just one more excuse to be on the internet and to Google things.
Yeah, head down that rabbit hole of research is just fascinating. And thanks a lot for sharing that. It's to me, like going missing, especially like you said, in today's world is very difficult because of everything requiring credit cards. And, there's always some way to track someone. But thanks for sharing.
Yeah. Even I don't know about where you are, but in Los Angeles, there are these cameras on major intersections throughout the city, and they're authorized license plate readers. And these cameras dump information about every car that's passing past it into a database, which cops use to track, license plates and makes of cars looking for, bad people. But it also tracks you, and there's some privacy concerns about that. And that's mentioned briefly in the book too, just how you can't disappear because there are cameras that you're not even aware of tracking every motion. It's weird and creepy and very big brother. So yeah, it's hard.
It's a little bit scary. Rachel, your book is an interesting mix of private eye and psychological suspense. What aspects of each of those do you enjoy writing the most?
All of it. I really do. I like cramming, and that sometimes is a problem for me when it's like trying to market me because I like the structure of a private eye novel, of a procedural. I like the beginning, middle, and end, what needs to happen where. But I also like discussing, those kind of suspense, domestic topics that are in lots of books right now. So me jamming them all together, that's just kind of what I do. I had the grain of this idea about a woman disappearing several years ago after I wrote my very first book in 2002. And I wanted to discuss these issues back then. And it was very, very, suspense driven with this very, it was very character driven with this woman who is terrified and wants to disappear. But I didn't know how to write it. And it took me a few years of just writing, and then writing the Lou Norton series and learning how to write a procedural that I came to uncover, okay, I can do both. So I will wedge this domestic story inside the skeleton of a procedural. And now she's gone. So it took some time. It took experience. It took, just waiting and reading other great books that have either both or one of those aspects. It wasn't an organic thing for me.
No, I can totally understand. When I did my master's in creative writing, and they made us go into critique groups of different genres. So I learned so much from science fiction and fantasy about world building and romance about relationships. And I think that was a really good training ground, for writing, because like you said, when you dive into a sort of subgenre, there are certain tropes, right, that you need to follow, and it's nothing wrong with taking post-it notes and highlighters and going through these books and studying them. Right?
Post-it notes and highlighters, that is my jam. And as I was creating the story towards that last the last two drafts, when you're looking to see if the pacing is right, I got these sheets of 9 legal size paper, and I taped them one tail into the other and a long scroll, right? And that's how I stepped out the novel to see if, oh, there's nothing happening here. Let me put something there. Let me put something there. And it's like this cool long scroll. And I got to use like all my writing tools. And for me, that was very exciting. So
That's so smart, by the way. I love that process.
yeah, and I guess you can do it on a computer, but I'm so analog and old that I like writing it down. I like seeing all my work in stacks and post-it notes everywhere. So yeah.
Oh, I love it. Now, you also, just speaking about, research and backgrounds, you have a background in American and English literature, correct?
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
I wondered, how does that help you with fiction or hurt you? Is there any pros and cons? Because I know we talked before the session started that, we both kind of have worked in the medical writing
Yeah.
field. And so it's
Yeah.
very different to go from that. Can you dive into that for us?
I would say that it's nothing. Well, if there's going to be a con, it would be, oh, my book has to be like that book over there. It has to be important in these big, big ideas, and it has to win the National Book Award. And that can be an obstacle for a lot of writers, especially writers of color, who a lot of us didn't see ourselves in those books anyway. So it's like, well, how do I write genre? It's mystery, and back then, especially, genre writers weren't considered real writers. You remember when it was a big thing when Stephen King won the National Book Award? And I think it was Norman Mailer, like, oh, how could he possibly do that? He writes, these scary genre books. So that's a con, I would say. Us as baby writers not believing that we're worth the page or we're not worth readers. Beyond that, reading everything is so important to a writer, even if, in every field, you need to be able to reference old stories. For They All Fall Down, the book that came out before this, I had, as a part of my degree program, I had to read the Canterbury Tales and Dante's Inferno, and all these things that have great structure that we go back to. And I wouldn't have known how to do that if I hadn't read those stories, or how to talk about sin and embody it in people. So it's been nothing but a pro for me having that extensive background. I've taken, for my degree, I had to read Russian literature and some German literature. And everyone has read, Kafka and the Metamorphoses and, Crime and Punishment. And those are worthy books to read, especially in our genre, of how to take something strange and fabulous and make it today and make it contemporary.
Well, I thought you did a very good job with that, with And They All Fall Down. And
Thank
and
you.
by the way, she was a Thriller Award nominee for her.
Yes, it was.
Congrats.
Thank you.
Rachel, if you weren't an author, I mean, you're talking about all this stuff. It's so fascinating, and I can't help but wonder, if you weren't an author, what field would you like to pursue?
I would probably be at what I do for a day job. I've always been in mission-driven work, in nonprofits since after my first college job. Well, after my first job after college, I started working for nonprofits, the first being Penn Center USA West, which is a part of Penn American Center. And that is where I met um, regular working writers. That's where I met Gary Phillips and saw that, oh, a Black genre writer, Black mystery writer, Paula L. Woods. I met her through that. And so, helping to raise money for these incredible organizations that do good, I'd still be doing that. I was a frontline fundraiser actually for the ACLU, which I absolutely love, but I hated, you know, asking face to face for money. And that's when I'm like, huh, I like writing. Why don't I become a fundraising writer? And that's what I've done since 2000, being a fundraising writer and using my love of word and persuasive writing to help people. Right now, I'm helping raise money for research and better treatments for people, my day job. So I think I'd still be kind of doing what I do every day because, I love it. I get up every day, and although sometimes it's like, oh my God, going to work again, at least I can say I am helping people, and for me, that's a joy.
Such a great answer, and it's such a noble cause, by the way. I would
Oh, thank
there's a
you.
small part of me that was hoping you were gonna say help people disappear, because 'cause I'm still interested in that. I'm still fascinated by the whole disappearing aspect. Like, we can't go anywhere without at least one iPhone on us, right? And, like, so
Yes.
you know you're being tracked everywhere. And there could be a need for that these days. People do wanna go off the grid, I think, and disappear a little bit.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
yeah,
they
it's very
do.
interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's part of me would like to be a detective, but then part of me is like, I don't care that much. I mean, I do, I like people, but then, most writers, we can be in a room somewhere alone and just be entertained. Just give us 12 books and a pen and a pad and we're cool. And I'm like that in many ways. So, people frustrate me. So I wouldn't be able to be in that kind of service for too long because I'd be snap out of it. And also, I'd like to be an astronaut, but I'm so much of a writer, I'd be rounding up the numbers and then we'd never make it off the ground because I can't do math. So there's that.
I can't do small spaces. I wanted to be an astronaut too, and then as a kid, one time I got locked in the closet. Ended that whole fantasy right there.
Ooh,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I was, we had to put our internet cables or something, we had to run them under the house and one got loose and I had to actually go under the house and crawl through and pull the little wire down. And it was my first time being in cramped spaces. And I was so proud when I came out, a little scared of all the spiders and everything, but I think I could do it. I think I could do it maybe. I
well,
say
I
maybe
would I
because
would
I
so
know
have
it's
paid
coming out.
someone. I would have paid someone to do that. We had Peter James on, who famously locked himself in a casket, and I could barely even get through the interview with him. I was already so disturbed and feeling claustrophobic just talking
Yeah,
about it.
yeah,
And
yeah,
he had them nail it shut for 30 minutes, wouldn't let him out. Can you imagine?
yeah,
Yeah.
no.
So we'll leave those, expeditions to Peter and we'll just say safe. So, Rachel, your first book, A Quiet
Mhm.
Storm, great title, by the way,
Thank
uh,
you.
was, it was very well acclaimed. I mean, it received an incredible review from O Magazine,
Yeah.
starred a review from Publishers Weekly, and of course, it was chosen as a Rory book, which, for those who don't know, is Rory Gilmore, of the Gilmore Girls. He had a book list. I would love to hear your story because I think these are very motivational for other people. How did this happen? How did this magical moment happen?
Which moment? Just
The
my very first book?
Had the first, like, how you got the agent and the call and then the
Oh,
public.
yeah. So it was weird because looking back, it's been so long and so much technology has been invented since then. So you remember there was that book of how to get an agent, and he published it every year, and it was like this thick, and it had
Yes.
all the writers and agents in it. So I bought that probably from Wall Books or Walden Books or something like that because it was 1998, 1999. And I found my very first agent, Wendy Sherman, in those pages. And the internet was new. I had a Netscape account and I sent out some digital queries for those three agents who accepted email queries. Email, what is even that, in 1999? And then I sent out the hard queries with a self-addressed stamped envelope out. And Wendy loved my pages and she asked me to send it. And that's when you would print it all out and put it in a box and send it off. And it was weird because on the day that she said she wanted to represent me, I was at a funeral and it was really strange. And it came in the mailbox, this, I want to represent you. And so it took a moment for her to sell it, especially back then when, you know, there weren't a lot of young contemporary Black writers writing things, and especially West Coast. But she did. She sold it to Scribner. And yes, it got some great press. And it was published, though, on the first anniversary of 9/11, which, oh my goodness, who cares about any book that isn't 9/11 related on the first anniversary? So that didn't help in some ways. But, I kept chugging. And I still to this day, I have not earned out of that book. Um, and it was very difficult for me to get another book deal. especially since the books that they started publishing by Black authors were very urban and gritty and East Coast Sister Soldier type books. And my books were decidedly not that. And I still have rejection notices from editors saying, this book, we like it, but it's not urban enough. It's not Black enough. Your voice is too upmarket. And but I just kept writing and writing and writing. And meanwhile, I'm living life. And when I was 33, this was 2003, I got pregnant with our daughter. And I went to my first appointment, my first OBGYN appointment. And my doctor's like, do you know you have a lump in your right breast? And I'm like, maybe I'm pregnant. Things are lumpy. And she sent me to a radiologist. And it ended up being a phylloides tumor. It was cancer. And so I was pregnant with my daughter having, breast cancer surgeries. And she came out, she was normal. She was completely healthy. And I thought I was fine. And I was writing because writing was always my therapy until 3 years after that. And they found a lump in the other breast. So now I'm on, doing more surgeries and tamoxifen therapy. And I'm thinking about my mortality as I'm still writing, as I'm still trying to get a new agent because Wendy and I had separated by now. And as I'm thinking about my mortality, I'm thinking to myself, what do I want to do before I leave this earth? And there were two things. I wanted to buy a Mercedes Benz, which I had said I was going to buy for my 50th birthday present, but here I am, 36, 37 years old. I may not make 50. So I did that. I got my Benz. And then I said, I wanted to write a book that has like Terry McMillan's Waiting to Excel meets Walter Mosley's Easy Rollins, Devil in a Blue Dress, and smash them together. I'm not a cop. I knew some, my brother's an attorney, so I have some idea of law and justice. I grew up in rough neighborhoods. I know about some of this, but I didn't know anything about writing a procedural. But I told myself, I'm going to do it. I'm going to go to Writers Police Academy and read books and read Miles Corwin and David Simon, and I'm going to do it. What's the worst that can happen? I've actually lived the worst that can happen, and that's being scared for my life. And I started writing Land of Shadows, which was the first in the series of the Lou Norton books. And I landed another agent, and I've been writing ever since then. So that was published in 2014. And it's been quite the journey. I still, have faced additional health woes, but writing's always been there for me. And, I would do it without being paid to do it because, again, I've always done it. It's always been my safe harbor. And I love these books and I have so much to say. And now that people are actually listening and care what I think, and because crime will always be with us, I will have plenty of things to write about. So that's the long version.
Well, I love it, and I really respect your perseverance over the years, and the fact that you used it as a cathartic outlet. I agree with you completely. I think writing is very, very powerful. In some ways, therapy. For all of us as authors. So thanks for sharing the story, and I'm
Oh,
really
thanks for asking.
You
Yeah.
have, yeah, you have such an amazing story. How over time as a writer, do you feel like your life experiences have given you greater insight into character, human observation? How have you changed as a writer over time through all this?
Oh, definitely. In some ways, I'm glad that I was at this young phenomenon, but because back when I was a young person, you know, I, I had seen a lot. I've seen a lot, but I wasn't wise to understand what I'd seen and why I'd seen it and why people do the things they do. I hadn't, I had lived, but then, there were moments where it's nothing but, Bartles and James wine coolers and spandex dresses and partying and all that in between all the crazy things. But your focus wasn't, why is this happening to me as much as it is when you're older? And so, being sick while being pregnant, my whole 30s was just a complete mess. And it helped me to see, what real fear is, what true hope is, being disappointed, celebrating even while you're disappointed. I mean, for me, I was pregnant and dealing with cancer, and yet there's this wonderful baby that I'm about to have that my husband and I have been waiting for. So learning how to balance all that, and not being rejected a lot, and being told you're not this enough and that enough, that all goes into who we are as people. And I think because of all my life experience, and always being that kid who read books and journaled and all that, all the disappointment and wonderful things that have happened to me have only been I've only been able to write characters like Grace and Sykes because I know what it is to be scared and to hold my breath and to hope for the best. Um, I'm glad those things in some ways have happened to me, because it does give me a perspective that a lot of people, a lot of writers don't have, where they're kind of supposing what it means to be scared for your life. Um, I don't want this to happen to anyone else, but if you do, I would say use those experiences to infuse the experiences your characters are going through for that authenticity. Um, yeah, I would have, loved to have skipped the cancer part, but I also would have loved to skip being rejected, but I didn't, and so I'm going to take it and use it, and like what we writers do, I'm going to use it for these books on the page to make great characters.
That's excellent. I feel too that, as writers, we kind of have to enjoy the journey. And there's a lot of, hills and valleys, right? Moments where I've got this. And then the next minute, I still don't have this.
Yeah,
And yes, exactly. Given like, and it's really interesting because, a lot of the bestseller lists actually are full of people that are older. And I think the reason for that is because it does take time to hone your skills as a writer, and also to build a readership, and to just develop into sort of the human observation side of things. You become wiser with every year.
yeah.
So given that, like, what advice, you've been through so much, both in publishing and in life, what advice would you give newer authors trying to break in right now?
Mm. Be patient. Be patient and take notes. I am like you probably, Kim. I if I see something interesting, I'll take a picture of it and throw it into my Evernote. If I see something interesting on internet, I clip it and save it. Listen to your friends, how they talk, what their fears are. Look back at your parents and see, if they're crazy people, why are they that way? What did they do that you think you would have never done? But as we get older, we sometimes fall into those same things. Pay attention to it all and read everything. Read as much as you can, even those genres you think you know are beneath you or have nothing to do with you. All of it is material. All of it is relevant. And then just know that your voice won't come until you've written a lot. What is it? The a million words or something like that. It, and now she's gone. I think is my where I hit my million words, where it's like, I know how to do this. I know how I sound. I know what I like seeing on the page. I know how to make something musical, but that took time and practice and wisdom and motherhood and working day jobs and being disappointed and hoping for the best. It takes time. And fortunately, with books, there are no expiration dates on books, unless you're writing like, some timely political book. But for crime and genre, these books are timeless. Thrillers are timeless. And you ain't got nowhere else to go. So just hold your horses, keep writing, and pay attention, look around, but just keep writing.
That's great advice. So true.
Yeah.
Perseverance. That's like, I see when people persevere year after year, they end up successful.
Yeah. I mean, just by attrition sometimes,
Yeah.
I still have like a random person buying A Quiet Storm, even now, even 20 years after, it was published. And I'm sure in the year 2050, Simon and Schuster's going to send me my royalty check or something like that, because it's never over. It's never over.
Well, Rachel, I love to laugh and have fun. So one of the things that I so appreciate about you and your writing is that you make excellent use of humor in your books, which is not always easy to do at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
What type of humor do you enjoy writing the most? And is it as difficult as it seems? I mean, from sarcasm to sort of dry humor, what
Yeah.
do you prefer? And is there one that's harder to write?
I like just laughing at human nature, the ironies. I mean, I grew up in church, and there are a lot of good people there, but there are a lot of hypocritical people there. And I was the kid who's like, oh yeah, you want me to not wear a short skirt, but you're filling up on that usherette over there. So I like kind of the human nature, isn't that ironic kind of thing. Um, I I like that's why I guess I like humor like Bob's Burger and The Simpsons, where it's like it's not obvious sometimes. It's more kind of like poking, but it's not a Seth MacFarlane, The Family Guy, where it's like I have to show you what I'm doing so that you get it and so you laugh. So I like the kind of more subtle jabs. I like um, how people misuse language just because they don't know what the right way to say things is. I find that hilarious. People who think they're so smart who are completely wrong, and how we all kind of snicker and do like this because they think they're so smart. It's like, oh my God, that's not the right your, it's another your. Why did so yeah, I like that. And I like how humor allows us to take a breath from the bad things. For instance, a lot of people get mad at Black Twitter. Black Twitter is where all the Black people go to make fun of current things. And sometimes, we laugh about awful things that are happening. We poke fun at it. But especially for us, if we didn't laugh at things, we we wouldn't have survived. So I like being able to be in a very tense, crazy situation and someone cracks a joke, because it allows us to breathe, to take a moment
Yes.
and to be somewhere else. I mean, the debates the other night, people are like, oh, stop talking about the fly, stop talking about the fly on Pence's head. But it's like, if we don't laugh at the fly, we're just going to be depressed and sad. We need something. People need something to take their minds off of the worst things going on in life right now. And if I can do that in my books where some of the worst things are happening, that allows me as a writer and the readers to just say, that was funny. Now let's get back to this. It's a pause. We all need pauses, and humor is a great, you know, a great place for that. And it has to be organic. I just don't like try and shove laughs in there. I want it to be an authentic kind of, oh, this is crazy kind of thing.
Yeah, I think the faster that tragedies become comedies in life, the higher quality of life you will lead.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you need it. We need it. Oh my God, we need to laugh. And, we need to acknowledge the awful things, but, you know, you have to. God has given us the ability to laugh, so let's use it. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think I read somewhere that children laugh 400 times a day, and the average adult is less than 40. So we really need to get.
Oh,
Isn't that terrible stat? We're like, I'm gonna go hang out with some kids.
yeah.
I can tell you that's true right now. I have 6 of them downstairs, and I just heard one of them laughing. So, yeah, it's definitely true, and they make me laugh more than 40 times a day. So
Wow. I guess so. That's good to know.
Yeah.
That's good to know. And how depressing for us adults. Oh
Right?
my
no,
goodness. Yeah.
That's why I try, to watch some, kind of lighthearted comedies on TV for a break, or just like get on the phone with a good friend and just laugh about ourselves. It's incredibly healthy.
Yeah. Every night before I go to bed, as I go to bed, I watch Golden Girls. I love the Golden Girls. I think it's the best show in the world. And it allows my mind to find that place where it's like these great women, these great writers, all these gags. And yeah, it's important for me to have that going to bed at night.
I agree completely. So,
Yeah.
Rachel, it has been an absolute pleasure having you on today. But before we let you go, I wondered if you could kindly tell us what you're working on now.
I am working on my next novel, which comes out next August, called These Toxic Things. And it's about a digital scrapbooker who is in the business of curating memories for clients. And as she's curating the memories, that's pictures, memorabilia, all these things, as she's curating these memories for the owner of a curiosity shop, the shop owner turns up dead, and there's something weird about these memories that my digital scrapbooker is curating. And at the same time, she's learning things about her own memories, her own life, her own background, and she's trying to figure things out. So it's a book about secrets and memories and family, which is a wonderful thing. And it's called These Toxic Things. So that's next August.
That's a great title, actually. I love that.
Yeah, thank you.
I do
No,
too.
it's gonna be cool. They're illustrations. So
Ooh, okay.
yes, I'm very excited. I'm very excited.
Perfect. Well, like I said, thanks so much for taking the time out of your busy day to come join us. We are excited to let everyone know about you. Want to show your book one more time?
Yes.
Yeah. And now she's gone.
Great cover, by the way.
Yes.
I love this cover. They
Yeah, I
did
do
an
too.
incredible job with this cover. And it's so Instagrammable, which, I've learned about the whole Instagram thing and bookstagrammers. So yeah, it's a great cover. And thank you for inviting me. I love talking to you guys this morning.
An absolute pleasure. Have a great day.
You too.
Bye for
Bye.
now.